I got in trouble at this very location when I was younger. I'm going to take you through the town I knew as a little girl, just the way I used to walk through it. When I was a little girl, my daddy was purchasing agent for Washington County. Daddy always came home for a hot lunch. If I'd been very good, he would let me go back to town with him. That's what he called going to town. I could spend the whole time downtown playing until he left the office at 5. I was the vagrant of Jonesborough. I was everywhere, and I had a schedule. First thing I would do is I went to the back of the courthouse to see if my grandfather's Hilbert's 2 horses were tied to the tree. He would always give me pennies he had. I'd go hunt him down at the feed and seed place. If he wasn't there, I'd go to the post office or the bank. Sometimes he'd come and get me, and I would get to ride with him, and he'd ride me past the courthouse. We'd go to Cherokee, and he'd stop and let me out. I'd watch for Mr. Sam Kirkpatrick, and he always had a buffalo nickel for me in his vest pocket. He would see me up the street, and in his booming voice, he would say, "And here comes Miss Becky." I would run and hug him. He was a wide man. I couldn't reach around him. He would hug me and swing me around, then set me down and say, "That's always worth a nickel, Becky." I'd say, "Thank you, Mr. Sam." And Uncle Hilbert was always good for a chocolate ice cream cone. Uncle Fred and Morrell's barber shop, they had suckers. Uncle Fred would let me pick my own sucker out, but Mr. Morrell would give me whichever one he chose. I would take those 2 suckers. I knew Rosemarie Cawley always had money, so I knew I could always take my free suckers and trade her for pennies. If she had lots of money, she'd give me 2 cents per sucker. I'd finagle around until I had cash money. Then I would go see Mr. Fagel. I loved Mr. Fagel. He was Dutch or German, and he would let me buy candy. Oh, I had my rounds, but there were 2 places I was forbidden to go. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was too far down the road from my daddy. One of the places was Buddy Gresham's store, which had bubble gum. I was 9 at the time, and one day Jane Young and I were together, and I decided I wanted bubble gum. I had been forbidden, so I said to Jane, "I'll go in and get bubble gum if you watch for my daddy." I ran in the store, bought the bubble gum, and then I ran out of the store into my dad. I guess Jane didn't know what being a lookout meant. My dad said, "Rebecca Jane, what are you doing? Were you in there?" When we said yes, he made a parade of us all the way back down the road. Every time I took a step, he'd whack me one good. I still don't chew gum to this day, but that was the Jonesborough I grew up in.